What caused that? And if there was a cause for the Big Bang Theory, what needed to occur in order for that Big Bang Theory to happen? What we get into is what I call infinite regress. We constantly go backwards and backwards and backwards, and we know logically at some point something had to have kick-started everything. Yes. So for me, my definition of that creator is that it is eternal. It operates outside of the limitations of this universe. Meaning, are we going to die? Me and you're 5 foot something, you're probably 6 foot, right? You're limited in size. Like, you can't just become 100 feet tall if you wanted to. My perspective, and based off of what we are told in the Quran, is that creator is eternal, does not live nor die, has no limitations on space, because to what you said earlier, the idea of limitations and observation is based off of the human perception. That can't apply to something that we call a God. Then automatically God is limited, if we could describe it. So that's why in the Quran in chapter 112 it says that God is uniquely one. There is nothing like him, right? It was not created, nor does it have children, right? So I don't agree with this idea of God having kids, God being a man, God being an animal, etc. Our view is God is completely separate from creation. That's very different from Catholic tradition. What is it from what you remember in Catholic tradition or Christian tradition? How do you guys describe God?
At least in the Catholic Church, it's like one monotheistic, one God, and then it's like heavenly Father figure.
Yep.
I think it's much more defined from what you're talking about, like God in Islam.
Yeah.
Do
you guys believe in the Trinity?
Yeah.
Okay, right? So the idea of the Trinity says that the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit are co-equal and co-eternal, right? Which means that you have essentially these three beings. They're separate individual beings, meaning they have their own consciousness, yet they're all one God. So you have three persons, one God. So tell me this, does that mean if Jesus is fully God and the Father is fully God, then whose will supersedes the others? Okay, so let me put it to you like this, right? The Father, does Jesus do what he wants, or does he do what the Father wants? See, correct, right? He has the same wants. But in the Bible, Jesus says clearly that I have not come to do the will of my own, but the will of the Father. I'm not here to do what I want, but the one of the one who sent me.
I guess from my understanding, when I was taught, it's that he understands the human perspective as a holy man.
Yeah.
But what he was called for was
absolutely. That's fair. So let me put it to you like this. If God exists, would God pray to anyone else? Well, if God prayed to someone else, then the question is, okay, if God's praying, then there's something greater than him. So when Jesus is on earth, who does he pray to? He prays to the Father, right? Right before he's faced with persecution, he's being arrested. In the Bible, in Mark or in Matthew, you can see this. He says to God, God, take this cup away from me. Father, I don't want to do with this. Take the cup away from me. Meaning he doesn't want to be persecuted. He doesn't want to deal with death. He's afraid. So if Jesus is the one that's constantly calling to God, he even puts his forehead onto the ground and says to the children, to the Pharisees, the greatest commandment of all is, "Hear, Israel, God is one, and we worship and love that God with all our mind and all our heart." You'll notice in the Bible, Jesus never makes the claim of saying, "I am God." So the question I have from you is, obviously are you guys practicing Catholics or no? Right? The question I have for you, and just something to ponder about, is where did the idea of Jesus being God come from? Do you guys want to take a guess, maybe? The what? The prophet? And what about you? I think it more aligns with what you're saying. Because I'll go with what you're saying first, just to respond to that. When you go and look at the messages of the prophets, for example, what was the first commandment revealed to Moses? That's not the first commandment, but it is one of the commandments, right? The first commandment is Take no partners with God and worship God alone. Yes, right? Abraham said the same thing. Noah said the same thing. Isaac, all the prophets of the Bible said the same thing. So then the question I have for you is, what was the message that Jesus came with? Yeah, love thy neighbor is the second greatest commandment. The first greatest commandment is what he says, right? He says, "Hear, Israel, our God is one God, and to worship that God with all our mind and with all our heart." So Jesus says the same exact thing. So now the question is, why did the Christian doctrine implement this idea of Jesus being God? And you'll realize that this comes from the stories of Paul. So Paul is the one that winds up talking a lot about, hey, you don't have to follow the law, which contradicts actually what Jesus says in Mark. Jesus says, I have not come here to replace the law, but fulfill it. And when people are asking him what's the best way to get into heaven, he says all these different works, and then at the end says, you haven't done one thing, which is let go of all your wealth and give it to the people who are in need and die, right? That's what Jesus says. Jesus never said, hey, look, just believe that I came to die for your sins and you will be forgiven. Jesus never preached that. That's what Paul preached. And so when you look at that, Jesus, the idea, especially of where Christianity began, was in what empire? Where did Christianity start? The Roman Empire. And what was the beliefs of the people from the Roman Empire? They were polytheists. Right, pagans. Do we know the stories about Zeus and all these guys? So what did they always do in those stories? What did the gods do? Would they come here and sleep with our women? Right? They'd come down, they'd have like all this sort of fun and doing all these different things. Now, if that was the society that they that believed in these concepts, right? The Romans believed in the idea of man gods and gods coming down and sleeping. Now the question is, how could that society distort the message of Christ? Why would they do that? Well, think about it. If I'm telling you that now Jesus is coming and saying that there's only one God, and then at the same time you're in a society where a whole bunch of people are polytheists, they're automatically gonna be like, yo, what is this guy talking about? So what I'm saying is, if you look into Christian history, you'll see that after around 325 AD is the Nicene meeting, right, where there's a council where all these churches got together to be able to best understand how did they implement the the faith of Christianity. So they talked about the who-ness of Jesus. Who was Jesus exactly? Basically, long story short, after everything passed, they came to the establishment of Jesus, the doctrines as you come to know it today. Later on, they established the Trinity, etc. Long story short, there's a thing called the Edict of Theodosius. Do you know what the Edict of Theodosius was? Established Christianity as the official religion of the Roman Empire. And basically, in it, if you read the entire thing, it talks about that anyone that didn't embrace this concept would be, boom, executed or exiled, right? So they would, right? This is the thing. So they're telling you, hey, look, if you don't embrace this and retain unity, why would the Roman Empire be so focused on uniting the people? Why? Why would anyone be focused on uniting people? Huh? Yeah, hive mindset. Look, if I wanted to take ownership or control over something, wouldn't I want everyone to think a certain way? Right? We've read the what's Animal Farm, right? The entire story about Animal Farm is they go ahead, they have doctrines that they implement upon people, they start thinking a certain type of way, and if you think other than that, boom, you're persecuted. Right? So same as that concept here. So this compared to Islam. We as Muslims believe in a very simple idea. We worship only the Creator. No partners, no man, no idols. One. The second thing that we believe is that God sent down prophets. So as a Muslim, we must believe in Abraham. We must believe in Jesus. We must believe in Moses. Not only do we believe that Jesus is the prophet, we believe that Jesus is a Messiah. And that one day he's going to return. And the last thing is we believe that Jesus or the prophet Muhammad was the final messenger of God. So the question is why do we believe? Do you know anything about Muhammad? What do you know?
6th century, 7th century.
6th century, yep.
I know like There's like resting places in Mecca or something?
Yeah, so his resting place is in Medina, which is called the city of the Prophet. Mecca is where the Muslims go to make the holy pilgrimage. Do you actually know where the Muslims get the idea of the holy pilgrimage from? Actually, actually, that's very correct. So Abraham, right? And you go and read the story about Abraham. It talks about how they went to a certain valley where one of Abraham's wives needed water for her baby, which Ishmael, right? And she ran back and forth, etc. So you will actually see in the Bible where it talks about Abraham making this pilgrimage. And so we as Muslims say that that pilgrimage happened in Mecca, and that the area where he was trying to walk for water for his wife, or she was trying to find water for her son, that is located in Mecca, the fountain that came out of nowhere in the desert. Yes, yes, exactly. So that's the story. So we as Muslims, we mimic that pilgrimage, and we go and make that in our lives at least once. Every Muslim is required to do that. So the beliefs for Muslims is worship that one God. You believe that the Prophet Muhammad is a final messenger. We make our prayers during the day, but a lot of people ask, like, why do you think Muslims pray 5 times a day? Boom, that's it. How busy do you get when you go into the bathroom? What is the first thing you do? Yeah, you check your phone. Now, when you go into your bathroom, you sit down on the toilet, you go right onto your phone, right, and you doom scroll. Literally, you have nothing else going on in your life, but you doom scroll until the day of death, and then that's when you wind up on the weird side of the internet, right? So God says, why don't you take a couple minutes just to reconnect? Have you ever meditated or anything like that? Why do you meditate?
I think it's just to find like solace, especially like during. I know like we're supposed to do it like more regularly,
Mhm.
but like I think for me it happens more like intermittent, so like during.
Absolutely. That's it, right? And the Creator says, who's better to call upon than to the one who provides, the one who sustained life, the one who created the universe. So for us, is when we actually do those prayers, we're directly worshiping the Creator. We're also praising Him, and we're thanking Him. So in our prayers, we do all these things, and on top of that too, we put our forehead to the ground. Let me ask you this: if you were standing next to somebody and you see somebody putting their forehead on the ground, is that humiliating, or is that something to be proud of?
For me, it's just like a simple like sign of respect.
It's a sign of respect, right? So what we say is we bow down to no man or no creation. The only one we bow down to is God. That's it. And so that's our opportunity to reconnect, right? We be able to, like, all the things that you're going through. Maybe as guys, we're not the best at sometimes disclosing our feelings. I say in that moment, you can say whatever you want, because someone is going to give you that reasoning. Do you know what we believe is the purpose of life as Muslims or as people who follow Islam? Sorry? To serve God, sure, right? What else? What do you think? Why do we live? Why are we alive? Deep existential questions here.
We're just here.
We're just here. Let me put it to you like this. If you were just here, hypothetically, right? Then the question you have to ask for yourself is how did you get here? Why were you here? Like,
I think like I answered that usually like similar kind of to like what you said about the whole like regression thing.
Yeah.
It's like it's something that happens, but I can't explain it.
so I'll explain to you very simply what our perspective is, right? In Islam, what we say the purpose of life is that the purpose of life itself is that this is a test. It's a test for us to be able to see when things are going really well. Alhamdulillah is what Muslims say, right? God bless. When things are going bad, we say Alhamdulillah, because no pain or no struggle befits a believer that they cannot bear. So our entire view is that this life is a struggle, and that the only way for us to be able to achieve, let's say, peace in the long run is by submitting ourselves to our God, right? Our will and stuff. But if you guys do have time, I know you guys have to run. I don't want to hold you up. Would you be interested in taking a couple of our literatures? Can I hand you something as a gift? It's just something to read, right? Would you like one as well, miss? And this is for you if you got your bag, of course. Yo, homie, do we have a women in Islam or no?
Let's check. What was the name?
Can you just check if you don't mind?
I think I saw one.
Well, mine is definitely there. I was just saying if we had it in the other boxes.
Yeah, there we go.
The purple one? So I'm going to include this one just for you too, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions around women in the faith. But that's a gift. I don't want to hold you up.
I do have a couple of questions.
You hit me with it. That's what I wanted you to do.
I think, so I grew up Catholic, and obviously Catholic doctrine, there's very like unified, very centralized like power for the Pope.
Yeah, it's in the church.
Yeah, it's in the church, like
Yeah.
there's three, like one apostolic like church on the but like for Islam, is it more like centralized? Or is it like more like very like each mosque has their own thing going? Or, like, how
In Islam, the only rule that you follow is the rule that comes from God itself. So this word that you might hear, Sharia, right? That just means law. And it's a law that's given to us by God. So a mosque or people cannot supersede the doctrine that was given by God itself. So mosques in themselves don't ever, let's say, come up with rules or regulations and things like that. All they tell people is like, hey, there's a location for you to come and pray, for you to connect with the Creator, and you follow the laws revealed by God. So we don't have like centralized entities.
laws are like very open to interpretation. Like,
Sure.
How do you adjust like how wide or like narrow that like?
Very good question. So the question is how do we distinguish between the laws in terms of implementation within society?
Yeah.
Right? So the first thing is actually the Quran itself is clear. Second, when you go and look at the Quran, it talks about being able to learn from the Prophet and his companions in terms of how did they receive the message. So you have to remember the Quran was revealed over 23 years of the Prophet's life, meaning that there's 23 years worth of history and context that once you understand, you learn how you implement it. And thankfully for us, there's something called the hadith. And what the hadith are essentially narrations with the strong chain of speakers. So basically, it says that Ion told, what's your name? Joanna. Joanna told Jin, and Jin told Alan. Albert, right? So now we have this chain that's established. It originates with me. Then what we do is the second thing is we evaluate our characters, meaning Ion's a trustworthy and honest person, Joanna's a trustworthy and honest person, etc., etc. Then we evaluate the mental state of these four individuals, meaning that a hadith or this sort of narration from the Prophet Muhammad cannot be taken as authentic unless we've passed all these different criterias, meaning knowing who the people were, what was their mental state, and what was their character. So this needs to all be established, and within that explains how we implement the law in our lives. And now if there's other things that come up, for example, how do we use cryptocurrencies? That's where you differentiate to the people who are studied very deeply in the law, the jurists. And the jurists come together and create what's called like laws for people to follow right from there. But they can't do it just off of a whim. They're like, yeah, you know what? I feel like doing this. Therefore, I'm making a law. It has to be based in the evidences from the Quran or from the Hadith. We have very strong foundational evidences. Like you might see like other faith groups just say, hey, if you believe or if you just think this, you'll be fine. We don't do that here.
And then like in terms of like the concept of like heaven and hell, that's
Yes.
not something like we're like super often from like friends in general.
Mhm.
Like, but it's something that like very common like Christianity. Like,
Yeah.
how does that like interplay?
Well, No, go ahead. Say what you say.
that's it.
No, say
That's
it.
all I have to say.
Okay.
Man, bad literature.
Let me ask you this, right? Your view of heaven or hell, based off of what you understand, what is it that people tell you about heaven or hell?
I think for me, like I obviously depends like a lot based on church to church and like
Yep.
even within the Catholic Church, but for me, I always thought it was really weird that like heaven and hell was like a very so, like singular, like focus on yourself, getting yourself saved,
Mhm.
and then spreading the gospel to like save other people.
Yeah.
But it was just like heaven is like ultimate reward and hell is like ultimate punishment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for us as Muslims, we don't just talk about people being saved, right? We talk about your idea of entering into paradise as being something that you take accountability for. Meaning that yes, it starts with your faith. Do you believe in the Creator? And if you believe in the Creator, then naturally you would do as He says, right? So it starts with you as an individual alone. Like my job is just to plant the seed. I have this conversation with you, but I can't bring you with me, right? I'm not going to intercede for you on that day, right? The only thing that I can do is be able to give you, and you as a rational being has to take that message and apply it to yourself. So yes, we believe in heaven and hell. But the reason that we believe in this thing is a similar way that we have, let's say, consequences to actions in life. Right? If you, for example, you're a very well-studied individual, you're here in Drexel University, you guys in the med school, what are you guys at? There you go. Look, it's almost like I know this university. My brother was supposed to come here for med school as well, so, but he went to Rutgers instead. So our perspective is that you are studying so hard, and you're here for 7 years, right? It's a 7-year med program, or is it 6? Okay, so you're 4, so 8 years in total. So you're here for that med school, you're here for the program, you're studying. After you graduate, after all this work and all the studying that you do, you want to become a good doctor, right? You want to get the good bills, like you want to get the 3, 4, 500K salary. Why? Because you earned it. Now, would it be fair for someone just to show up one day into wearing a cap and gown and being like, "Hey, look, yo, I'm a doctor too now. Give me the 300K salary"? No, it doesn't work like that. And on top of that too, let's say for example, someone comes, you guys are good citizens, you're having this good conversation. Somebody comes over here and clap, shoots someone. Does he deserve to go to jail? Right, there's punishments. There's consequences for our actions in this world. So the question that we have to ask for ourselves is, if we are beings that were created by a universal creator, then why shouldn't there be universal consequences or rewards for our actions? Meaning us having a good conversation. You smiling, for example, right? And according to Islam, that is an act of charity. Look at that beautiful smile. I see it. Look at that. Right? That is an act of good work. That's an act of charity. Right? Because you smiling made her smile. And now he's going to smile soon. At one point, you're going to say, there it is. Right? It's a natural thing. That, to me, is what life's all about. It's not, oh, yo, you have to come to a certain religious centralized organization. You have to pay money in order for you to attend. And if you don't believe in what we believe in, and you believe that some guy came down and died for your sins, you're going to hell. We don't believe that. We believe you follow the message of God. The God is the only one that forgives you, and you turn to him and him alone for forgiveness. That's the summary of Islam. Cool. No, you're good. You're good. Any other questions?
I do, but like, we also gotta keep
No,
going.
go ahead. I'll leave you with this. If you guys ever have any questions and you want to go on our anonymous hotline, it's there. It's the largest hotline for asking questions about Islam and things like that. You're more than welcome to. You can also hit us up on our social media pages. So if you ever see Why Islam, boom, just hit us up. Tap in, all right? I appreciate you. Thank you so much for talking. My name's Ion. Ion, and you were Jin, and you were Albert. All right, pleasure meeting you. And Joanna, it was a pleasure meeting you too. Have a good day, guys, all right? Take it easy.
فإن حاجوك فقل أسلمت وجهي لله ومن اتبعن وقل للذين أوتوا الكتاب والأميين أأسلمتم فإن أسلموا فقد اهتدوا وإن تولوا فإنما عليك البلاغ والله بصير بالعباد